Well, hello there. Welcome to Insuring Your Well-Being. I am Dennis James, the bike and dancing insurance man, and I have the estate planning guru. His name is Victor. So, Victor, let's start by beginning. You tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dennis. Again, my name is Victor Veprauskas, and thanks for having me today as a guest on your podcast to speak about estate planning. What is it? Why is it needed, right? So a little bit about myself. I am an attorney, a licensed attorney in the state of Michigan. I've been practicing for a little over 23 years, almost going on 24 years. Hard to believe. Time flies when you're having fun. I'm also a licensed financial advisor. I'm a managing member of Access Estate Planning. We're located actually in Troy, Michigan. I actually live in Lake Orion.
You lucky guy.
And some people say, well, what do you do for fun, right? I enjoy the outdoors, right? That's what Michigan's all about.
Absolutely.
And so my wife and I love camping.
Mhm.
I love getting outside, whether it's golf, hunting, shooting sports, ATVing. My wife and I do ATVing almost every weekend in the summer. So we really do enjoy it.
Sure. Yeah, that's cool, right? I mean, I've spent a lot of time with my wife, too, you know. She's a great connection, if you know what I mean.
It's great to have someone you enjoy those things with, right?
For sure. All right, so let's do this. Why don't you tell me a little bit and why it's needed when it comes to estate plan, right from the basics?
Sure. So I think, first of all, I like to start off with, sometimes people ask you, well, Victor, why do you even practice an area of estate planning? Because that's all I do. And that answer for me is really really easy. That question is really easy, and that's just my dad. Many years ago, I was a lot younger, and I remember it was a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to go on vacation. My grandmother called me. It was a little after 9 in the morning, and she said, "Honey, I'm sorry, I got some bad news. If you ever want to see your dad alive again, you're gonna have to get to the hospital. He's not doing well."
Yeah.
And at that time, I lived in Auburn Hills. My dad was in Manistee, Michigan, which is up by Traverse City area.
Yeah. 3 hours away.
Exactly. Yep. On a good day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Drove up there, picked my brother up. We got up to the hospital, and sure enough, my dad was in ICU. Everything, all of his organs were failing, and he passed that evening a little after 6 o'clock at 47 years of age.
Wow.
I then got to go through the process of probate, understanding what his assets were, creditors were, and how to do all those things. At that time, I was an attorney, and it was difficult for me to understand. And I was like, if I'm struggling with this,
Sure.
what are people who are not even licensed attorney doing, right? There's got to be a better way.
Right.
And that is exactly why an estate plan is needed. That is the better way. So, sometimes people will ask, well, what's an estate? I don't have much, right? But people have to understand it's everything you own. So it's all of your personal property. It could be jewelry, cash, financial accounts, life insurance. That's the whole purpose of this show.
Very important.
Your other financial accounts, retirement accounts, investment accounts, all those things. And it can also include and it does include all of your real estate, right? Whether it's your home, a cottage up north, recreational land,
Sure.
and all of those things, right?
Making sure it gets the loved ones properly the way you would want, it to go.
That's right. And so the first thing we got to do is figure out, what is the estate, okay?
Sure.
Once we know what the estate is, then the next question, of course, always is, what is the plans? What are the types of estate?
There's quite a few different plans, too, the way I understand it.
That is correct.
And, I know you'll talk a little bit about wills and then obviously trusts for personal and business. But, go ahead and
so let's
get
talk
into
about that. What kind of plans are out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
What people don't realize is by doing nothing, that is a plan, right? It is a plan. It's a default plan, but that's the plan.
Absolutely.
But there's even a plan before that, and I call it the spend-all plan.
Okay.
Right? Just spend it all.
Right.
Right? Make sure that your check bounces to the funeral home, right?
Yeah.
I'm joking about that. But those people are kind of easily to spot, right? My office used to be near I-75, and so I could see I-75 real easy. Sure. And you would see these big motorhomes going down the I-75, and they had a huge bumper sticker on it and said, "I'm spending my kids' inheritance," right? So they probably had the spend it all attitude. Okay.
Gotcha.
But the other type of default estate plan, all kidding aside, is what we call intestate.
Sure. Yeah.
That is the state law's estate plan for you.
Okay.
The problem is you have no control.
Yeah.
Right? It goes where the judge says, where the law says, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts
Yeah,
about it.
there's a lot of time involved in that, the way I understand it. It could take a lot of time and money.
Yes, it's timely, it's costly,
Yeah.
And it's public.
Public. Yeah.
Right? Everybody's going to get to know what you own, right?
Yeah.
And who's inheriting what and when and where and all those good
Sure.
things, right?
Yeah.
The other type of plan is a will-based plan. You mentioned a will earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So a will-based plan is simply written instructions to the judge of where you want your stuff to go. Okay?
Okay.
There is a misconception sometimes out there. People will say, well, if I have a will, I don't have to go to court. No. If you have a will, you must go to court. You're going to probate court. That's the whole purpose of a will. It's instructions to the judge.
Okay.
The great thing about a will, though, is you're at least opting out of the default state rules, right? You get to decide where you want your stuff to go. You're telling the judge. Okay. The other issue is, that, as you mentioned already, the trust.
Yep.
Right? So there is what we call an revocable living trust.
Yep.
When someone thinks of a trust, that's typically the trust we're talking about.
Exactly.
You can change it, you can amend it, you can modify it.
You know, it's interesting. I just being in the insurance profession, right, when it comes to revocable trust or irrevocable trust, right, and maybe you could educate, keep it simple and let them know about that.
So, and that would be part of more what I'll call even advanced planning.
Sure.
Right? So advanced planning, you may have irrevocable trust.
Mm-hmm.
It might be, there's different purposes for them.
Sure.
It might be for what we'll talk about a little bit later, but Medicaid planning.
Yep.
It might be to protect yourself or loved ones from creditors. Okay, shield assets, protect assets.
Yep.
But an irrevocable trust means you can't change it.
Yeah.
Think of it as a big box, a treasure chest.
Yeah.
In a revocable trust, you put all of your assets into that treasure chest, except for you have the key.
Mm-hmm.
And you can open it and take stuff out and put stuff back in and change it.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Right.
With an irrevocable trust, once you close the lid, it's done.
Yeah.
You're not getting back in it.
So usually the trustee is the one that makes the decisions on that after listening to you.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And in an irrevocable trust, the trustee's sort of in charge.
Yeah, I just know from dealing with businesses, where with life insurance how important
That's
that
right.
is.
Yes. Yeah. And so there can be what they call irrevocable life insurance trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
ILITs.
Absolutely.
There's all different types of trust, whether it's revocable or irrevocable out there. And so it really gets down to what is the person's goals and objectives. And I think that's what I try to excel at.
Sure.
Is asking the hard questions, listening, and keep asking and asking and asking until we really figure out truly what is the client trying to do, right? What is their objective?
Now, I also know that we all know that things change in life.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, right, if you started one today, when do you normally maybe bring that up again and maybe upgrade it? Does it depend on the individual, the business, or, I mean, is there a rule of thumb on any of that?
So that's a great question, and I would say all of the above, right? And whereas an attorney may say, depends. Okay, that's another great attorney answer. But the fact is, I tell my clients every 3 to 5 years, at a minimum, pick up the trust, the estate plan, and hold it for a minute and go, did anything change, right? If the law changes, the attorney should be reaching out to their clients and notifying of that change, right? So they have an opportunity to amend their trust, bring it up to date. If there's a life change circumstance, then the client needs to contact the attorney. I know in our practice, we try to stay in constant contact with our clients so we can address those issues.
I've seen you do that, right? Running seminars and just connecting with them. That's great.
Always about education.
Yeah.
Just what you're doing, this whole podcast, which is great.
Right. Yeah. Well, most people don't know, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
That is
right?
true.
I mean, it's not their profession. They don't know. That's why you hire professions. So then,
That's right.
I mean, we're all good at whatever we're good at, and so important that way. But I'm so glad you brought that up as far as time changes and all that. And now, do you run seminars? And I don't want to spend a lot of
Yeah.
time on that, but just kind of, just give me a 30-second,
Sure.
and is that kind of
We-
normal or what?
Um, I would like to think it's normal. I think other attorneys do it, but
Yeah.
we try to excel at it. We are constantly offering workshops.
Yeah.
So if anybody just goes to our website, accessattorneys.com,
Okay.
AXIS attorneys.com,
Yeah.
they're going to see all our events. Okay. And they're listed. I think we have events scheduled all the way out through September.
Okay.
Some of them may be important to someone and others may not be. So that's why
Yeah.
we have a different variety of
Right.
topics.
Yeah. And I also know when it comes to any type of planning, if it's life insurance, long-term care insurance, any type of planning when it comes to legacy planning, estate planning, when it comes to powers of attorney. Could you spend a little
Sure.
time on that and
Yeah.
explain to the audience what that means?
Absolutely. So another misconception out there is an estate plan is simply just a will or it is just a trust,
Mm-hmm.
right? And typically when we think of estate planning, we're thinking about the time after we've passed away. That's not true. An estate plan is just as important while you are alive as when you've passed away.
Gotcha.
And the reason that's so that's the reason for power of attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Power of attorneys, there's two different types, right? You have a financial power of attorney. Some
Yeah.
people call them a durable power of attorney.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
may call them a property power of attorney, but they're dealing
Mhm.
with the financial side of things.
Okay.
The other type of power of attorney is called a medical power of attorney. That's our patient advocate. Who are we going to put in place to make health care decisions
Right.
for us when we cannot do so ourselves?
Absolutely.
So the estate plan should cover, a properly drafted estate plan should cover the time when you're alive,
Okay.
maybe become disabled or incompetent,
Yeah.
and then also when you've passed away,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And the power of attorneys are important because they designate the people that can make decisions if you cannot while you are alive,
Mm-hmm.
right? Before that will or that
Yeah.
trust may necessarily kick in after you've passed away.
I follow you. Sure.
Okay.
Now, we're in Michigan, right? It's called Pure Michigan, I believe.
That's right. That's right.
And it's very pure. It's lots of lakes. But with that being said, here versus other states, I mean, is there something that, because people will move to Florida or whatever they will do, they'll move to another state.
Yeah.
So just talk a little bit about that.
So typically, your will and your power of attorneys are going to be very state specific. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The trust, not necessarily. Okay. And it just depends on the state. So, Michigan, funny enough, you brought this up, but Michigan recently just adopted a new law regarding power of attorneys, financial power of attorneys. And it's a Uniform Power of Attorney Act. And that goes into effect July 1st. All right. 2024.
No kidding.
Yep. So it's coming down.
Wow, good timing, Victor. here.
Perfect, right?
Man.
So with that being said, though,
Yeah.
there's a lot of other states that have adopted that Uniform Power of Attorney Act, right? So if you had it here in Michigan, likely it's going to be recognized in those other states. What I typically do, we may have clients that set up an estate plan here in Michigan,
Yeah.
and they retire
Yeah.
permanently down to Florida, let's say.
Sure.
What I do is put them in contact with a Florida attorney just to make sure everything is up to date. And there's no nuances that would affect their estate plan. It's a good peace of mind. It's good money spent
Sure.
to do that just to make sure. I've even done it for other attorneys out of state where their clients have moved from Iowa
Mm-hmm.
or other states, Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
to Michigan, and said, would you look over and make sure that everything's okay?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think of that sometimes with, when it comes to any kind of life insurance, long-term care insurance, any type of planning like that, having those connections and making sure, because it can be different in different states depending. Most are reciprocal, when it comes
Right.
to your plan that way, so they don't really have to worry about it. But it all depends, and that's why you check with your expert, whoever your insurance or financial planner is, or state planning, elder law attorney.
Absolutely.
Just to know, right? It gets right back to that peace of
There are
mind.
4 advisors, I think, that every person needs to have. Okay.
Hmm.
One is an attorney.
Yeah,
Another one is an accountant type
yeah,
CPA,
yeah.
a financial advisor, and an
Yeah.
insurance advisor.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah,
Those 4 are so important.
right,
And those are the professionals that, if you would, make up the team.
right.
And the client is sort of the head coach, right? And is running the
Right.
team.
The quarterback.
Yeah, that's right. So that's those are important because they all got to interplay and intermix. Life insurance
Yeah,
and estate planning are
yeah,
interesting characters
yeah.
because people will say, "Well, I don't really need an estate plan." Right? I'm sure, Dennis, you've heard, "Well, I really don't need life insurance." Well, there is one
Yeah.
certainty that I can guarantee everybody,
Amazing. I know what you're. Go ahead, tell 'em.
right?
Tell the audience.
All of us
No.
will pass away.
Oh my goodness gracious,
Right.
you're a genius.
That's right. So think
That's
about
so
it.
true, right? And it's reality. And what happens? It's the family that suffers, or the business suffers,
Yeah.
right?
And
So
people will
that's
not think twice
yeah,
about talking to their homeowner's insurance agent
yeah,
and insuring their house.
yeah,
And if we think about it, that's only one
yeah,
asset of their entire
yeah.
wealth.
Ask them when their house burnt down,
Yeah. So
right?
they'll pay, well,
Versus having long term.
exactly. So what
Go
they'll
in the
do
wrong
is they'll
direction.
pay 30, 40
Right.
years of insurance
Yep.
on a house, hoping
Exactly.
they never have to use it.
There you go.
But the fact is, life insurance, they'll use it,
Yep.
right? If they keep it till
Yeah.
they pass.
That's right.
An estate plan,
Yep.
you will use
You
it.
will. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's all peace of mind, security, right? And it always gets back to peace of mind for the family, the business. And, right, the reality is you're really doing it for your family, your loved ones.
That's right. Your estate plan is all, in essence, all about control, right? How is it going to pass? Who is it going to pass to? What is going to pass to those heirs or beneficiaries? Are there any stipulations on how they're going to receive it, when they're going to receive it, right?
Mhm.
All of those things can be controlled with an estate plan. Otherwise, you lose all that control.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
as you mentioned, it takes a lot of time and money if you don't have the estate plan put in place. And while we're on that topic, just because I had this interesting, unfortunate meeting this morning
Yeah.
with a lady. Her husband recently passed. They
Mm.
did an estate plan with another firm back in 2008.
Okay.
They came in and she said, "Well, everything's in the trust." It's not.
Mm.
So now we have $100,000 of assets. We got to go through the probate court process. And all of it could have been avoided with a simple changing of a name, putting it into the trust or a beneficiary, and it wasn't done. So if I can leave any advice to your clients listening would be, if you have a trust as part of your estate plan, or even if you don't have a trust, make sure that you have the beneficiaries listed. And or if you have a trust, make sure that the assets are placed into the name of the trust. And if you don't do that, you're still going to have to go through the probate court process.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. So elder law, I know you're an estate planning attorney, but you also have a background with you're a financial planner. I know
Yeah.
you're very good at what you do, and we just know in our life, right, we are, even though we may not totally specialize in it, right, but elder law, you want to speak a little bit about that,
Yeah, I think
and the role you could play in it, or?
sure. So we in our practice, we are also considered elder law attorneys.
Okay.
In my opinion, and every estate planning attorney should know the issues of elder law
Mm-hmm.
and have that as part of their practice, because otherwise you may be not advising the client as they should be, right? If you don't know those issues. But we do have that as our practice. typically elder law, sometimes, people will see that as what they call Medicaid assistance planning. So we will help people get qualified for Medicaid or help them with
I'm
applications,
with you.
Medicaid.
Yep.
And for those listening may not know what that means,
Yeah.
that is when someone, a loved one, family member, whatever, needs to go into a nursing home for long-term care, and the costs are really high depending on the type of need required.
And you only qualify for certain places.
That is true.
Yeah.
And you can only have so much in assets and
Correct.
income and all
Right.
those things. That's where the attorney comes in to help them. And it's people that aren't ultra wealthy, because if you're ultra wealthy, you can just write the check and pay for the nursing home or long-term care. It may be people that have insurance. So if they have insurance, they don't have to worry about that. And then there are people who do not have any assets or income. Those are the people that might be poor. Well, they don't have to plan to be poor, right? They're already
Right.
poor.
Right.
They're going to qualify. But it's the people in the middle, I'll say the working class,
Right.
that may have some assets, and they want to try to protect those assets for their family.
Yep. Yep. It gets right back to having your trusts and all that, right? So you're protecting all your assets, even you have money.
That's
Right.
correct.
I mean, there's a whole lot more to it than just having money, right? If you want to keep families together, that becomes really important, is having where it's going and having the stream of income, life insurance, your annuities, your long-term care insurance. It's a stream of income.
That's correct.
And that, right, just like everything else. So that, in having the estate elder law plan in place with the
correct.
proper professionals, will make a difference in everybody being happy instead of tearing families apart.
Right. And for those in Michigan that are listening, or in the Northeast,
Mm-hmm.
we call those, a big part of an estate plan sometimes, or an important part, is maybe the cottage up north.
Yeah.
Right. And especially here in Michigan. But in the Northeast, they're called camps. Right. But the point is, to the extent that you said, okay, you have a cottage or a camp in the trust, you want to keep it for generations. How you funding it? How you paying for it? Right? That's where your insurance, life insurance, and all those annuities, all those things you just talked about, that's where those all come into play, to make sure there's an income stream or asset, a liquid asset,
Sure.
to be able to maintain it for the family.
Yeah. Now, do you usually get like families when they get married, or is there certain ages? I understand what we need to do, but when do most people, or help me out, or help the audience out and understand that?
So it's a great question as to who needs it or when they need it, right?
Sure.
And the general answer is everybody, because
Yeah.
if you're over 18, you should at least have power of attorneys.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
The other issue is if you have minor children,
Yeah.
at a minimum have a will, so they don't become wards of the state of Michigan, in essence, in the foster care,
Mhm.
and they go to someone who you choose to raise your kids. And then for those that are a little bit older, maybe have assets, now we're starting to look at maybe that revocable trust or irrevocable trust, depending on the client objectives. But generally, again, everybody, what we already
Yeah.
said, is going to pass away.
Yeah.
So you're going to need some type of a plan in place. And if you don't put one in place that you choose, the state already has one in place for you, and it's not
Right.
necessarily a good one.
Yeah. And we kind of, I'm with pre-planning, crisis planning. You wanna
Yes,
just-
so that gets back to that elder law issue.
Sure.
And the difference there
I
is,
agree.
if you're pre-planning,
Yeah.
we have at least, let's say you have someone that may be just first diagnosed with Parkinson's,
Mm-hmm.
and they may not need any long-term care ever. They
Yeah.
may not need it for 5 years. So we
Right.
know we have some time.
Sure.
So we can put assets into different types of trust, protect those assets, okay? So if the
Mhm.
time comes when they do need long-term care,
Yeah.
we have those assets protected.
Sure.
Okay. Crisis planning is mom falls, gets hurt at night,
Yeah.
goes into a nursing or into the hospital. The
Right.
hospital discharges her to a rehab facility that's also a nursing home in essence, and she can't come back home again.
Yeah.
She has to stay there. That's a crisis because there was no
Absolutely.
plan in place,
Yeah.
and now we have to figure out how
Yeah.
are we going to pay the $8,000 a month.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And just it gets right back to that whole caregiver thing, right? They're not used to it, right? I mean, they love
No.
their mom or whoever it is, but that that
You're right.
planning right back in.
I met with a
So
couple,
important.
a young couple last Thursday. Their mom and dad, so the mom and dad, both within a matter of months have been diagnosed with different types of cancer
Yeah.
and dementia issues.
Yeah.
They can't care for them anymore physically. Like they don't have the specialty, the expertise, the experience as a caregiver they need around the clock care.
Yeah.
And they're just married. Within 7 months, these kids are trying to take care of their parents. They live an hour and a half away from their parents.
Yeah.
So it is consuming their lives.
It is.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, Victor, let's just kind of wrap it up here. Do you have any final thoughts as far as, on the plan? We know the plan is always sooner than later, and you want to go ahead and get into a little how they can reach you.
Sure.
People have questions. They're on this as a listener to be informed, and just go ahead and share your final thoughts.
Sure. Well, thanks, Dennis. I appreciate it. I think everyone, just by listening, is getting informed, right? It's all about education and learning, so
Absolutely.
That's the first thing.
It is.
I think from contacting us, is the easiest way is just to go to our website.
Okay.
And that is Axis, AXIS, attorneys,
Okay.
.com.
Okay.
And if you go there, it's got a lot of information. It's
Yeah.
got our workshop. It's got our phone numbers, all those things. That's the easiest way to get a hold of us. And I appreciate the offer,
right.
Dennis. I appreciate the questions.
Well,
It was great to be
we
here.
only bring experts on, Victor, so you don't get the Victor
I
B
appreciate
as in
that's
victory
right.
for nothing. All
That's
right.
right. Well,
All
I
right.
appreciate
So glad you're here, and we're going to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed this show, and make it a great day, and God bless.